Am I saying that right, Amy? I should have checked with you beforehand.
I pronounce it Hageman, but I think both are correct.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
Amy Hageman, who will also be speaking at Astro-Bash, but unlike all the other speakers, Amy is not a practicing astrologer. She's a practicing psychic channel and medium. I'm so looking forward to meeting you and hearing what you're going to offer us, Amy.
Yeah. Uh, so um I got into astrology because a friend of mine was getting into astrology and she would call me and be like, yeah, today we talked about this, we talked about that. And so I would ask her, so what are the houses again? And what's a cardinal sign? And so I was trying to learn astrology as she was learning it. And I got really into it. My work prior to the psychic business, I was in the world of personal development and leadership. And so my work has always been about like, how do we become our best selves? And on the spiritual side of things, A Course in Miracles talks about how we all have these like highly individualized curriculums. And so I really fell in love with the idea of like the natal birth chart is your curriculum. And then when you have a transit, it kind of gives you that paradigm of, okay, what is this asking of me? Is it here to help me heal something? Is it here to help me grow something? And so I just really got into that beautiful relationship between personal development and astrology. And yeah, so my friend and I, we were just having a great time, and I was listening to random little Stephen Forrest little videos here and there, not actually taking classes. But she lives in California and I live in Texas. And so one day I said, wouldn't it be great if we could go to a conference together with Stephen Forrest? Like, wouldn't that just be great? And that afternoon, I was like, I'm going to see if we can do that. And I looked on his website and there was Astro-Bash. And so we decided we would make it happen. And I decided, I was like, I'm going to try and speak at Astro-Bash. And nobody knew me because I'm not an astrologer. So last year I spoke about like business and marketing, and I don't really have a lot of experience in that. And so I just gave them everything that I had learned from my business coach. But I told Suzanne, I was like, I'm just going to get my foot in the door so that the next year I can talk about something that I want to talk about. So here we are, it's the next year, and I'm going to be talking about emotional intelligence for the elements. And emotional intelligence is really about managing energy. Emotions are energy in our body, and astrology is energy in the sky, or the energy that's your natural sort of default because of your birth chart. And so I think it's going to be a really good expansion, practical how to on, okay, your chart gives you the what, and I want to try and give you some of the how.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to learn some of the how. I've got some follow up from that. But before we go into that, Amy, can you tell us a little bit about you, your sun, moon, and rising, and how you got into being a psychic channel and medium?
Yeah. So I am a Taurus sun, a Capricorn moon, and a Libra rising. And I was fully in the personal development, leadership, diversity world when COVID hit, and I had two kids, one that wasn't even walking yet. It was a total life-changing thing. And I live in Texas. Then there was the Texas freeze. Then so there was just I had a lot of trauma in a short amount of time. And I went to my psychic and just said, whatever I'm meant to be doing, I'm not doing it. You just need to tell me what to do. And she said, you're a psychic, right? And I said, yeah, I've done readings, whatever. And she said, you're a medium, right? And I thought, is that what that is? I didn't, and I had connected with my loved ones on the other side, but I just figured everybody did that. Like they're your loved ones. Of course you can connect with them. I didn't realize that that was unusual. Excuse my cat.
Oh,
So after that, I just started doing readings for people, and it became more, it called me more than the leadership work did. And also it was what the universe put in my lap. It was like, okay, this is where you're meant to be right now. So that's how that started. Sorry.
wow. Oh, no, I love having your cat visit us.
We'll edit that.
What is your cat's name?
Callie.
Callie. What a beauty.
Calliope Jane.
Oh, beautiful name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about managing energy
Mhm.
earlier. And I am really curious about this whole managing energy thing because when I first got started in astrology, I would find myself really spent after my readings. And I kind of
Yeah.
modeled my readings after Stephen Forrest, where he does 2.5 hour readings for people. And I would just be spent and I'd have to take like an
Yeah.
hour to just recoup my energy. It's much better now. Now I have a few rituals, but
Yeah.
how would you advise somebody who's getting started in astrology or who's doing, because we're doing intuitive work anyway. I'm just curious
Right.
how you would advise people to manage their energy in that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is a lot of it is what happens before the reading and making sure that you're in a good place, you've got lots of energy, you feel rested, you feel completely. It's almost like the more that you have something going on in your own life that's distracting you, the much harder it is for energy to flow naturally. And when you're doing a reading, you have this natural flow of energy. But if you've got something going on in the back of your mind that you're trying to pretend is not there, or if you've got something spiritually or emotionally going on that you're trying to pretend is not there, that's going to block that flow of energy and exhaust you. What's most common I find with any sort of service practitioner is that we get too tied into our client's energy, and that's the thing that exhausts us. Because as long as if you're channeling whatever energy, and you could, some people would say it's their higher selves or it's just their intellect, or some people would say it's a divine, but whatever energy is moving through you when you're doing a reading, that is a separate energy than the client's energy. And so I manage those energies very differently. I really try to observe client energy and keep it at a distance where I can observe it. Whereas I try to let the energy that happens for me through a reading, I just try to let that take over. And so I play with them differently. And then as to your point, rituals are really helpful. And if you have something that works for you, do that. With in the psychic world, we kind of we learn to turn it off. And I think for astrologers that could be helpful too. Because I think we can kind of carry around our client interactions and oh, I should have said this or I should we can carry that around. And it's just like, no, just turn it off and restore and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's really, I guess it is really different to be, to have two kind of energies, one coming from source and then one coming from the individual sitting in front of you who is of course connected also, but what a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you talk about the energy work, the how that you're going to teach us, can you give us a sneak peek of what you're talking about?
Yeah. So, w- emotions, it's emotional intelligence is very fad right now. And what most people love to do is they love to identify their emotions. Like I am feeling angry or I feel betrayed. And that's a great first step. But then the next step is, but what do you do with that energy so that it's not driving your life? It's not the one making the decisions. And with emotions, the only way through it is through it. You have to physically give them an outlet. So, just as an example, with anger, for people that have anger pent up and they need to express it, but they don't want to hit anybody or throw something, there's something that we call angry arms, and it's when you do your arms as hard as you can, as fast as you can, like you should be sweating until you just exhaust yourself. And this mimics that anger and that charge, if you want to think Mars and Aries, like it mimics that energy so that you can just move through it and get it out of your body and give it a healthy outlet. So that's one example of
That's great.
what I hope to teach. I hope to give everybody an experience of shifting your energy. And ideally, it's both going to be, okay, how do we intentionally, purposefully experience those things that we wish we didn't have to? And then how do we actually shift our energy to get to what is an ideal energetic state for us? And of course, all of our birth charts are so complicated. So I'm just going to be looking at it from the idea of the elements, but everyone will take whatever they take from it. And hopefully it's going to be helpful.
I it's already helpful. It's so interesting, Amy.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. It makes me think it's like when you're angry, turn on a YouTube video of somebody working out and doing some hardcore cardio or hit workout.
Yeah, I go for it. And I'm always intrigued by the question of, okay, how can I'm angry and I'm feeling like I want to fight back, I want to push back. How can I shift from that energy that's keeping me stuck in this frame of mind to determined, or
Mm.
to, like there's other variations of energy that are similar, like determined is a natural outgrowth of anger, but how do I make that shift? And I think that's a really helpful question to answer for people.
What a fascinating, yeah, I love that. The shift from anger to determined. And I bet there's others also that, from
Right.
sadness to something and from hurt to something and all that.
Right.
Beautiful. What a fun, I'm really looking forward to, it's nice to be with astrologers, but it's also really cool to have adjacent complementary practitioners at events like this because it serves as it it really enhances our craft. So I'm delighted that
Right.
you're going to be there. And you were there last year, Amy.
Yeah.
How was your experience?
It was fascinating because I had learned enough at that point. Like I was familiar with all the planets and the houses and the signs. And so I sort of thought, I know astrology. And then I got there and I was like, oh, I don't know anything. Um, but I knew enough to keep up most of the time, and I learned so much. And what I really appreciate about Ralph, who started the conference, is that he wanted it to be a very personal, well-rounded conference. Obviously, he's inviting me back. Um, and a part of what I learned from is just we would sit down at the lunch table and we'd all have each other's charts, and just watching other astrologers in different levels of experience talk to each other about their charts. It was soul feeding, and I learned so much. Yeah, I would say for anybody that's thinking about going to Astro-Bash, it really does not matter if you're brand new to astrology. It's going to be a great thing. And because the conference is smaller and we're all around each other more, there's opportunity to ask questions. So there were several people that I was like, okay, so I followed this, but I was confused about that conjunction, or I was confused about, and you could ask them over lunch, and it was lovely. It's so rewarding. So I would, yeah, I had a great time.
I'm looking forward to it. It sounds a lot like the APs, but I didn't get to go last year, so I'm really excited about that. So, Amy, what role has astrology played in your personal and professional life?
Yeah. Personally, it's been so helpful in, again, for me, my favorite is to look at the transits and to kind of ask myself, okay, what's my assignment here? Where's the growth opportunity? Versus just sort of feeling pummeled by whatever energy is happening, which is what would have happened in the past. So that's been very freeing and empowering personally. Professionally, I don't give astrology readings, but I do give joint readings. So with my friend that I've learned sort of astrology through, she'll give readings and I'll add in whatever I'm picking up psychically or with people's guides. And they're so fun. They're so fun, and people, have had great experiences. So I've added that to my list of offerings, mainly selfishly because I just enjoy them. But so professionally, I've tried to incorporate astrology in a way that makes sense. And when I have clients that will talk to me about their birth chart a little bit, that will naturally come up in readings. And I'll be like, well, you said you had Saturn in Sagittarius, or whatever it is. I'll be like, oh yeah. So it's been able to bubble up organically as well. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds really, really interesting. So, Suzanne, Suzanne is the person you do the readings with, but
Yeah.
I was going to say, I also ask people some questions that I think wouldn't be relevant for you, but I'm kind of curious
Sure.
about this one, which is I ask people sometimes if you could have a conversation with any astrologer, historical or contemporary, who would it be and
Yeah.
why? And for you, I'm really wondering, can you channel for yourself? Can you have a conversation with, say,
Ooh.
a historical astrologer if you wanted to, and say, so Carl Jung,
Yeah.
what did you do before you sat down for readings?
Right. I have imposter syndrome around that. I've like not even tried to channel certain people. Um, I've always felt like a really deep connection to Princess Diana. Like when she died, I swear I knew it before it happened, and I was a child, you know. And so I in the past I've been like, I wonder if I could connect with her, but I haven't even tried. Uh, I don't think I don't think that I could. I think it's totally possible for somebody to do that, but because that I have an ego thing around it, I don't think that I could.
What do you mean you have an ego thing around it?
Oh, I have Saturn in the second house, so I have all the self-doubt and the I'm not good enough, and that sort of thing will block a reading,
Are
you
there
know?
are there like ethical things that you have to be really careful of when you do the channeling and medium work? Because I imagine some
Yeah.
of that might be, I guess a spirit won't come through if they don't want to, right?
That's a great question, and absolutely there are ethical things, and there are times when I've had to cancel at the last minute because I just couldn't get my energy where it needed to be. You know, like I had a late drop off or whatever was happening, my kid was sick, and it's like if I can't, even though I'm not unhappy, I'm not in a bad place, if I can't get it to where I feel like I'm not in my own way, then we can't move forward. It's not that I wouldn't be able to get psychic information because I would, but I couldn't trust that it would be the most clear or the most helpful. And so I tend to be very careful. I consider the work that I do to be sacred, and not that I'm special. It's my job to get out of the way and let it happen. And so ethically that's just like the ground rule is I have to really be able to take myself out of it and just allow whatever needs to come through. In terms of mediumship specifically, I cannot control who comes through. There are people that I've had a dad come through and his son was my client and his son was like, "I don't want to talk to him." And I was like, "We don't have to. If you don't want to, we're not going to." Um, but I can't control who comes through. And there are times, I have a grandmother that never comes through for me. And I'm like, why? She's just never, that's just not, she doesn't want to, it's not her thing. There are the kids that have passed on that sometimes come through and sometimes don't, and their parents would love to hear from them, but I can't make it happen. And the other thing is I work with my spirit guides to where anything that is gonna be harmful cannot be said. And, things that are painful can be said, but not that's harmful, if that makes sense.
How do you distinguish between the two?
I would say pain is a natural reaction to lots of things, and a lot of times we have to go through pain in order to have the healing. It might be painful to hear somebody say, "I just didn't appreciate you the way I should have." Like, that's a painful thing to hear because who doesn't want to be appreciated and who wants to hear that from their parent?
Yeah,
But ultimately it's a healing thing to hear because it's validating. And to hear somebody say that and to later take responsibility, and not in that minute, but in the long term, it's going to be healing. So it's not harmful, but it's painful.
wow, what a fascinating world of work that you do. And I know there are others who do this, but what makes your work unique, Amy?
Well, but don't you think with astrology, it's the same way? If you're going to look at a chart, you're not going to tell somebody you're prone to lying and cheating. You might phrase it as
Yeah.
you might be a person that really struggles with scarcity, and if you don't manage that struggle well, it's going to cause you to make some bad decisions. It's a very similar thing. It's the same ethical, how do you talk to a client in a way that empowers them and heals them rather than calls them out for where they're weak.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. And frankly, it's like just because there's one possibility in the chart, the other side of the spectrum exists also. So I
Yeah,
completely, we have free will, which is the biggest thing of evolutionary astrology, right? That we have free will.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so you had asked me what makes my work different. I think what makes me unique is that I had so much training in leadership skills and diversity work. I have a coaching certificate in emotional intelligence. I've always been fascinated by communication. And so I like to bring that in to my readings. I ideally people don't come to me to learn skills, so I don't spend their good money on that. But ideally, they find a way, whether it's through my podcast or whatever, they find a way to learn a skill to help them. Just like we were saying earlier, astrology will give you the what, but then it's up to you how, what do you do with how are you going to manage that energy? And I want to help people figure out the how, because I do have a lot of skills that I've learned about, and people don't come to me for that, but I have that. So I'm like, let me help you with this, so people will have a reading and they might get some insight into, you've been really codependent or you do a lot of self-blaming. And it's wonderful to have that knowledge about yourself, but then how do you work with it? Like, what's the next step? And that's what I hope to be able to give people. I'm brutally honest though. So if it's not something that I can do for you, I'm like, listen, you got to go see a therapist. You got to go, this isn't something I can help you with. You need to go over here. So I also like to tell people this is something that you should seek counsel for, or you should investigate. You should look at your transits. You know, I really focus on the what's next. This is what happened in our time together, and how do we get to your goal?
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful, Amy. How can people find you?
My website, amyhageman.love is the website, and I've gotten completely off of social media, so you can find me there, but I'm not active. I will not get messages. I'm starting to build my YouTube, and I have a podcast called Living Out Love, which
Mm.
again it tries to be sort of the marriage between spirituality and personal development skills, and how we those two things combined. And this season, I have a huge focus on astrology. I'm interviewing Suzanne every month to kick off the season that we're in and the transits. I love learning about the archetypes. And I think helping people understand the archetypes better, not only are they going to understand themselves better, but they're going to understand other people better. And hopefully, just having that awareness is going to help people to see the world differently and in a way that is more helpful for them, that hopefully means a more loving experience.
So beautiful. Amy,
Yeah.
what a pleasure to meet you. And I love that your website is amyhageman.love and you're doing Living Out Love. What a great energy. We need that in the world.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
chose all that before I knew I had a yod to Venus and Venus rules my chart. And so when I found that out, I was like, I'm on topic. This is so great.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Amy, thank you so much for your time. And I'm so looking forward to meeting you and learning about energy management with you at Astro-Bash in just a month and a
Yes.
half. Yay.
I'm so excited. It's gonna be such a great time. I'm looking forward to seeing all the people I met last year and to making new friends. I've got some of my people are coming, some of my people on my email list are coming. So it's gonna be so lovely. So
Oh, that
see
sounds
everybody
wonderful.
soon.
Yeah, a community reunion and
Yes.
adding.
Yeah.
Wonderful to meet you, Amy. Thank you so
Yes.
much for
Thank you
your
so
time.
much.
Thank you.